This is the Reviewing Network Live, a weekly stream of consciousness recording session where I sit back with you folks out there, talk about some of the big news stories from the past week, and some other things I found that might be of amusement to you out there. I think you might get a kick out of it. Now, these are more like audio podcasts and are much longer than my usual videos and are also, for the most part, unedited and will contain some foul language. So, if you're easily offended by that, I advise you to maybe step back a bit, maybe go somewhere else. But hey, if you're up to the challenge, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Thanks. And for the 67th time ever, we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Reviewing Network Live. I almost said the NFL Network, but it's not that day today. It could have been if there wasn't a ton of news stories to cover, and I'm serious. We've got a lot of stories to cover because it was a pretty eventful week of entertainment news all across the board. I'm checking how many things I've got here. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 different things I'm gonna cover today. Some stuff I had to cut out of here. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna do this. Make it 14. I was gonna do a review of I was going to do a couple of things related to The Simpsons. The Simpsons Football Fun Day was this past Monday. I was going to do a review on that, give my quick thoughts on that, but, we got so much stuff already as it is. I'm going to hold off on that. I'm also going to hold off on doing a live commentary on the first episode of The Simpsons, since that's coming up on Tuesday, the 35th anniversary of that. And, I'll save that for next week. I got to think that next week's can't be that busy of a news week, but then again, who knows? But so those are a couple things I'm going to hold off for next week. But we still got a lot of stuff to cover here. 14 different stories in general. I'm already wasting so much of your time here, but before we even get to any of those stories, we got to cover the weekend box office. And as I said last week, I didn't do it last week because the box office itself really was not that interesting overall. This week, however, it was interesting, not for the reasons you might think. There's still the number one movie, and but the new releases are much more interesting to talk about, to say the least. And boy, there's a lot to delve into with two of the movies, the two new releases this week. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it, because one of them is the first thing we're going to talk about here. So number 5 on the list of the top 5 this week, we have The Lord of the Rings: The War of the Rohirrim. Remember when The Lord of the Rings actually used to mean something to people? Remember when they were seen as blockbuster events, and now they're just seen as, just a last-minute attempt to grab whatever money you can because this is Warner Brothers under David Zaslav? Well, yeah, because this is exactly what has happened with this series. This is a $30 million budgeted movie, and only brought in $4.6 million. A Lord of the Rings movie bringing in $4.6 million for the weekend. That's not good for this movie. I don't care if it is an animated movie. You expect a lot more for $30 million. But here's the kicker of this whole thing. Warner Brothers already knew that this wasn't going to make any money. Because you know what they did? As soon as the numbers came out, they literally came out and said, this is all part of our plan, because we just put this movie into production for the sole purpose of just having the movie be out there, so we don't have to give up the rights to the franchise anymore. They literally made this movie and announced it in 2021 for no other reason except we need to keep the film rights to this. That's it. Which wouldn't be a bad thing if the movie actually was good. Which I saw the movie yesterday, and this movie sucks. This is not a very good movie. I mean, look, a Lord of the Rings anime is not a bad idea by any means necessary, and I mean, it could be done well, but there was no reason for this to go on the big screen. And also, the animation in this was surprisingly and shockingly very, very choppy and really poorly put together. I couldn't believe how terrible this animation looked. I mean, I had my worries going into the trailer that came out a couple months ago, because I thought that, okay, this doesn't look bad, but it looks very choppy, and it does not look like a movie that is made specifically for the big screen. And sure enough, that turned out to be the cold and awful truth about it. The the end result was a film that was clearly not meant to go to the big screen. It was only made solely because, they had to keep the film right somehow. It's Man of Steel all over again. Why'd they make a Superman movie in 2013? Not because they wanted to make a Superman movie, because somebody really believed in the power of a new Superman movie. They made it because they needed to keep the rights from getting taken away from them. And so they said, hey, Zack Snyder, want to do a Superman movie? I'm kind of a Batman person. It doesn't matter. Just get in here and just make this movie. And and people bought into it, but unfortunately people did not buy into this. And, this is one of the biggest disappointments of the year. I mean, to see a 2D animated movie on the big screen should be something extraordinary, especially for somebody like me who grew up with a lot of these 2D animated movies on the big screen, but this wasn't. This was just a mess. This was just a poorly put together movie, a waste of really good talent, a waste of animation overall that could have been so much better than it actually is. But yeah, the movie sucks. I was going to do a talking about the movies this week, talking about it, and also Red One, which also sucked too. But I'll delve more into those in my worst of the year list whenever I put that video together, because trust me, I'm going to have a lot to say about both of those movies. But anyway, that's Lord of the Rings: The War of the Rohirrim, and despite everything about it, it's not the biggest bomb of the weekend. We'll get to that in just a little bit. But in the meantime, the number 4 movie is Gladiator 2, only dropping 38% from last week, $7.8 million. It's already up to $145.9 million after 4 weeks. Worldwide, closing in on $400 million. So yeah, there's that. I haven't seen it yet, so I can't really say anything about that. Nor have I seen the number 3 film, the supposed end of Sony's Spider-Man universe, Kraven the Hunter. Because clearly this was intended to... This is something that should have been the big Christmas blockbuster. Remember 6 years ago when Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse came out and it just blew everybody away? Sony looked at this movie and said, we need to recapture that magic again. And you know what? Forget the kids this time around. Let's make it an R-rated movie. Let's make it the first R-rated movie in this Sony Spider-Man, non-Spider-Man universe, whatever they're calling it. And clearly it's going to make money. It's going to be a big hit. It was a hit, all right, but not the way you wanted it to be. It was a hit in the sense that you got hit with every single bad review possible for this, and nobody was going to bother to see this movie. This movie bombed hard. I mean, I can't believe that Madam Web, as bad of a movie as that was more successful than Kraven the Hunter was. Kraven the Hunter brought in $11 million this weekend. The budget on this movie, $110 to $130 million. Yeah. I mean, are you that surprised? Morbius, Madam Web, those should have not been the first warning signs that this was not going to do well. Yeah, supposedly this is the end of the Sony non-Spider-Man universe films. Even with the Venom movies. The Venom movies were... I mean, Venom The Last Dance was successful, but still not successful enough to warrant this series of films successful. I mean, kind of like with Lord of the Rings: The War of the Rohirrim, these movies are being made specifically because, hey, we got to get something out of this deal with Disney and Marvel, and so that's why these movies got made. And just like, I'm just baffled by these movies, man. I can't believe this one got even worse reviews than Madam Web did. Like, how do you do worse than Madam Web? Honestly, like, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But then again, none of these movies make any sense whatsoever. I don't really have anything to say because I haven't seen the movie, nor do I really intend on seeing the movie per se, but I'll probably see it before the year is out because, I need some more films for the worst of the year list, and this will probably be on there, right up there with Madam Web. I don't think it's going to be as bad as Madam Web, but you never know. You never know. But, considering that the next weekend, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Mufasa the Lion King are coming out, this was the only weekend it had, and, it's going to crater off almost immediately, so. Not cratering off immediately, though, is the number 2 movie this week, which is Wicked, which only dropped 38% as well, $22.5 million. After 4 weeks, $359 million domestically. Worldwide, it's over $525 million. Massive hit for a really good musical. A not-so-good musical, however, still remains as the #1 movie this week, and that is Moana 2, which brought in $26.6 million, dropped a little bit steeper than Wicked did, 48.1%, brought in $337.5 million in total. Worldwide, it's up to $717 million worldwide, and congratulations, Earth. You gave $717 million to a regurgitated TV series scrapped into a movie that was just a massive piece of shit all the way around. Like, ever since I saw Moana 2, the more I've hated it. Yeah, in the 2 weeks since I've seen this movie, the more and more I hate it. I mean, not because of the movie itself, but just because of A, the reason why it was created and how it came together, and B, because the people involved with the movie just will not shut up about the people who have legitimate criticisms towards the movie. The movie is not good. It's regurgitated pieces from a television series that was made into a movie because Disney was clearly running out of money and running out of options to make money, so they just said, just take a property that we're working on and let's make a movie out of it. Meanwhile, you got the people who wrote the songs for this movie, which are not that great songs to begin with, basically coming out and saying, "Oh, in a month your kids will never shut the hell up about it." I think my kids will have better songs in their heads than any of the garbage that they have in here. If you want to talk about the songs from the original movie, yeah, they're never going to get those songs out of their head, but no. You had to go out there and really do that because you're so triggered by people who have legitimate criticisms towards your movie, and instead of just admitting that, instead of just letting it go and just moving on with your life, no, you gotta combat the people who are literally telling you the truth about how bad your movie is. Yeah, this is not a good movie, and I didn't even hate it at first, but in the weeks since I've seen it, the more and more I've hated it solely because of just the people involved with the making of the movie that are trying to defend it like it's the greatest thing they've ever made in their lives. Like Dwayne Johnson beforehand, like talking about how, it's okay for them to start singing in the movie theaters. They paid their tickets. You missed the complete point. You missed the complete point of going into a movie theater. You go into a movie theater not to sing along loud and clear at the songs in the movies. You go to a movie to be entertained. I mean, you can hum along every once in a while. You can sing along quietly, but people are not there to listen to you and everybody else just screaming at the top of their lungs while they're trying to watch a movie. They're trying to watch a movie, and it just really bugs me on so many levels, man, and it's really hurting my feelings towards Moana 2. I didn't even hate it at first, but I hate it solely because of the reason why it came together, and also the fact that, everybody is, that the people involved are becoming the most arrogant assholes about it. It's just like, if you can't handle criticism in this world, then just get the hell on out of here. Just please. I don't know, man. It just really, really bugs me on a number of different levels. But anyway, that's the weekend box office. Like I said, the only big new things that we're talking about are the new releases and how not big they were in any way, shape, or form. And yeah, they were, what a shock. They were both big bombs. But next week should be a very good weekend for the box office in general. You got Mufasa the Lion King as well as Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which should make for the Christmas season very profitable for both studios in general. But yeah, I'm actually kind of looking forward to both of those movies, honestly. I don't care what anybody says about, Mufasa the Lion King and the Sonic the Hedgehog 3. This is what Gladiator and Wicked 2 and Wicked were supposed to be. Like, this is about as close as Barbenheimer as you're going to get. You got two big blockbusters opening up on the holiday weekend, and yeah, the studios are gonna be very happy with the results of this. Both Paramount and Disney, I think they're gonna do very well, and yeah, can't wait to see both of them next week. And I will have a full review for both of those on next week's docket. That's for sure. But yeah, so with all that said, let's go ahead and move on to the many, many news stories we've got to cover this week. So to start off the many news stories we have this week, Avengers Doomsday casting. Apparently they're getting the gang back together because we already have Robert Downey Jr. coming back, this time as Dr. Doom. We have the Russo brothers coming back to direct it. This week we had a couple of returnees from the previous films coming back as well. I say a couple because it started earlier in the week with the news that Chris Evans is likely coming back as Steve Rogers in Avengers Doomsday at the start of the week. And then on Friday, it was revealed that Peggy Carter's coming back with Hayley Atwell coming on board. I've got the story here from Deadline Hollywood, and it says, with Chris Evans likely reprising his Steve Rogers role in Marvel Studios' Avengers Doomsday, it looks like his former partner in crime will be joining him in the new Marvel movie. Sources tell Deadline that Hayley Atwell is expected to reprise her Agent Carter role in the film, with Anthony and Joe Russo are returning to direct, and Marvel President Kevin Feige is on board to produce. Marvel did not respond for comment, plot details are unknown at this time, and the film will bow in theaters on May 1st, 2026. Deadline was first reported in 2021 that Marvel and Evans were discussing a return in some form to the MCU, and the belief was that Atwell was also part of that plan to potentially return for a standalone movie. A story for the film could not get nailed down, but in recent months both sides showed the new Avengers films as the perfect opportunity to bring back both characters. Of course, Robert Downey Jr. is coming in as Dr. Doom, and maybe this is what this is. Maybe they're just making you think that it's going to be Chris Evans and Hayley Atwell returning to those roles, but it's going to be much different. It's going to be different characters altogether. I mean, Hayley Atwell was Captain Carter in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Maybe they can expand on that in general. I think Chris Evans probably does come back as Steve Rogers in this movie, but everyone's looking at this news. It feels like it's just, grasping for desperation at this point, just struggling to get something out of it, so let's just put the gang back together. I don't think it's that at all. I mean, I just feel like that these movies are going to be much bigger than are going to be these are the big storylines in the MCU. I mean, the last one these two guys worked on, Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, was so massive in scale. Like, you got to find some way to at least try to top that, which I think is going to be really hard to do. So, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole of those people that think that this is just them just wreaking desperation overall, because there's been so many other things that have been reeking of desperation, yet nobody ever says anything about that. But when it comes to the MCU, we're more than willing to make fun of the MCU because we used to like them before COVID happened. Just saying, that's kind of the cold, awful truth of it. But yeah, overall, not much more to say about this one. I just look at it as just like, I'm still very much optimistic about what happens here, and I really want to know which direction they're going to go with it now. Now the plan they originally had with Kang the Conqueror is no longer happening. So I'm very curious to see how this one pans out in general. So, again, not much more to say about that one. So let's go ahead and move on to story number 2. How about a real act of desperation here? How about the news that Meet the Parents is getting a 4th installment in the series? Because clearly the universe was demanding another Meet the Parents movie. Am I right or am I right? No. I'm not right, because nobody wanted to see any more of these Meet the Parents movies, especially after Little Fockers, but somebody at Universal said, fuck you, we're going to do it anyway, because that's how Hollywood works. It's just like, it doesn't matter what you say, they're going to do it anyway. Once again from Deadline Hollywood, here is the story. Robert De Niro, Ben Stiller, Terry Polo, and Blythe Danner are in early talks to return for a new film in the Meet the Parents franchise in development at Universal Pictures. Plot details are being kept inside the circle of trust. John Hamburg, who co-wrote the previous 3 films and also produced the more recent Little Fockers, is set to write the screenplay. No word on who's directing. Jane Rosenthal and De Niro are returning to produce through Tribeca Productions, along with Jay Roach, who directed the first 2 films and produced all 3 past installments. Stiller and John Lesher will all produce through Red Hour Films. Executive Vice President of Production Development Matt Riley and Director of Production Development Jacqueline Garrell will oversee the production for the studio. A comedy juggernaut hinging on uncomfortable situations with in-laws, Meet the Parents centers around the hilariously awkward and tension-filled dynamics between male nurse Greg Focker and his intimidating ex-CIA father-in-law Jack Burns, played Robert De Niro. Watching as the dynamic between them both evolves and stays the same as Greg marries Jack's daughter Pam, and has children with her. Also a core cast member, Danner plays Jack's wife Dina, while Dustin Hoffman and Barbara Streisand have appeared in multiple films as Greg's parents, Bernie and Roz, along with Owen Wilson as Pam's ex-boyfriend Kevin. It's not yet clear whether they'll return. So yeah, they're making another Meet the Parents movie, which, I can pretty much tell you... the way I started it was pretty much a perfect sum up of how I feel about this. Why? Why do we need another Meet the Parents movie? What really has happened? What really can happen with a new movie that wasn't already destroyed because of Little Fockers? Little Fockers, by the way, is one of those movies that is right up there with some of the worst comedies ever made. One of the worst sequels ever made, because it takes the charm and the hilarious stuff that made the first 2 Meet the Parents movies so great and just completely just water it down to nothing but gross out humor, really lazy jokes, and what more can you expect from one of the directors who also gave us the Twilight Saga New Moon? I think it was that same director too. If it wasn't him, it was the other director, Paul Weitz, who even he doesn't have that great of a track record on his own. Yeah, I don't know. Now maybe it is Chris. Chris Weitz did do New Moon, but still, man. The movie the third film just didn't work because it broke every single rule that the previous two films set up. It created stupid plot points and stupid side plots to give this movie a reason to exist. The whole thing with Jessica Alba having a crush on Ben Stiller and her lazily put together attempts to seduce him and try to create an affair with him. I'm getting flashbacks to how horrible that movie is, and that movie is a horrible, horrible movie. But Meet the Parents and Meet the Fockers are fun movies overall. But like I said, man, there's no reason to make a new Meet the Parents movie nowadays. Who really cares about these characters at this point? And when is the last time I shouldn't even say when is the last time, but we've had this discussion long time. Turning into Madeline Kahn at the end of Kahn. At the end of Clue. I have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. But what I'm trying to say here is that comedy sequels, many years after their original films, are almost never good. They're just taking whatever is available, whatever popular comedy franchises out there, and just making a new movie not because they want to expand the story and anything. No. They want to make the money. That's what's important here. And Little Focker and this new Fockers movie just feels like a real sense of desperation on the part of the studio and the people involved. It's just why are we even doing this? What really can be brought into this that hasn't already been said already? What other levels are you going to take this down to, where these movies are going to go from being these really enjoyable, fun movies to just completely unbearable? Because Little Fockers was one of the more unbearable comedies to ever sit through. And knowing how this is probably going to get quickly done, I would not be surprised if this ends up being the same type of movie. So yeah, brace yourself for another Fockers movie, I guess. Wonderful, just what we need. But let's get to some good news. Let's go ahead and move on to our next story, which is a very promising news story. So yeah, we finally got some good news to talk about here, and one of the big stories this week was that Aardman Animation is working on a new project, but not just any project in particular. This story comes from, I found this particular article on MSN, and in what might be simultaneously the most unexpected and delightful Pokemon crossover to date, it's been announced that the Pokemon Company is teaming up with British animation studio Aardman, of course best known for making Wallace and Gromit, Shaun the Sheep, and Chicken Run, to create a special project coming to audiences in 2027. A short stop-motion teaser of a Pokeball being formed out of blobs of clay have been revealed, which gives precisely nothing about what the project will be about, but is plenty enough to for me to get ridiculously excited about the prospect of Pokemon being brought to life in the animation studio's signature style. And I've got that little video here. It's literally just the Pokeball and then Pokemon and Aardman. I don't even think it's that long of a clip. 11 seconds. That was it. That was all that was. An 11-second clip of a piece of a red ball and a white ball coming together and a little black line to create a Pokeball, and it says Pokemon Aardman, and that's it. That's literally what it is. But yeah, it's a very how can you not get excited about seeing Aardman, a company that makes some of the best the best claymation stuff ever, along with a couple of other really good things like Arthur Christmas, and Pokemon coming together on a project like this. And I really don't know what the project is, but I already love the talent that's on board with it, because the person who is working on this is Pete Braungart, who, if you know the Looney Tunes cartoons, he's one of the main producers behind it, main creative people behind it, and he's working on this new project as well. So, in a week when we finally get our first trailer for The Day the Earth Blew Up, the Looney Tunes movie that comes out in February, this is something that I'm really, really excited about on so many levels. That's not because of just the project itself, but because he's on board this too. And the guy usually very rarely ever misses with the stuff he works on. I mean, this is a guy that's worked on Futurama. He's done stuff for like Shorty's Watching Shorties, The Venture Brothers, Chowder, Adventure Time, Clarence, Steven Universe. Just a ton of stuff in general. He did these Tom and Jerry shorts when the movie came out not too long ago, which we'll talk more about Tom and Jerry just a little bit because they are in the news this week. But yeah, man, I'm pumped for this. I'm really excited to see what they bring to the table with this whole project. You got Pokemon, you got Aardman Animation, you got the company that put together, the same guy that worked on the recent Looney Tunes cartoons. This is a win-win scenario on so many levels, man. I can't wait to see how this pans out. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on back to some news stories that, unnecessary, more than likely, but should be talked about. Say, remember that American Psycho remake that they were saying they were going to do, and I hope that they weren't going to do? Well, it seems like it's moving one step closer because they have already begun casting they've already officially cast the new Christian Bale, the new Patrick Bateman, and this story comes from Variety. And it says, obviously right in the beginning here, of who it is. Austin Butler is poised to star in Luca Guadagnino's new interpretation of the book American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis for Lionsgate. While there have been rumors that Jacob Elordi was being eyed to play Patrick Bateman, that casting didn't come to pass. Elordi and Butler have something in common, having both played very different versions of Elvis in movies by Sofia Coppola and Baz Luhrmann previously. The film, which features a script by Scott Z. Burns, will not be a remake of the 2000 film, but a new adaptation of Ellis's novel. In the original movie, which came out in 2000 and set in the 1980s, Christian Bale stars as Patrick Bateman, a Wall Street yuppie and serial killer, under the lens of Guadagnino, who is best known for Call Me By Your Name, Challengers, and most recently Queer. The new take on the book could have a larger erotic emphasis than the original horror satire. Guadagnino has also dabbed in genre in Suspiria and Bones and All. While Butler is attached to play the lead role in the movie, Guadagnino it literally says have in the description here. Guadagnino might have had interpreted the Patrick Bateman character in a much different way than his previous incarnation. Although Butler's casting as the titular serial killer has not been formalized, sources say an offer is imminent. So yeah, they're remaking American Psycho pretty much with a new look to it. And, I don't know. I don't like the idea of them already starting to remake 2000s movies, but, it's not a bad idea. I would be curious to see how Luca Guadagnino would make it work, but the original American Psycho is such a classic movie because of what Christian Bale brings to the table and how dark and grisly it gets. And yeah, I'm going to be very, very cautious about this, of course, because it is a remake of something that I do kind of like overall, but, it could work. I'm not the biggest Austin Butler fan. I really didn't like Elvis that much, so I can't really say how overall good this could really be, but I'm cautiously optimistic about it. I'll give it a shot because I do like Guadagnino's work. So, yeah. With all that said, let us go ahead and move on to the next bit of news here. And now we go back to why are we even doing this? Why? Merchandising. That's why they're doing this, because the next story we have here is that Disney has not gotten the hint that we're sick and tired of these live action adaptations of their animated movies, and are saying fuck it, we're gonna do Tangled now. Disney has literally put another live action remake of a film that's not even 20 years old yet, and from Variety, of course, this is where the story comes from. Excuse me. And it says, Tangled is the latest Disney movie to get the live action treatment. The studio is developing a reimagining of the 2010 animated movie, a musical take on the Brothers Grimm story about the magically long-haired Princess Rapunzel. The Greatest Showman filmmaker Michael Gracie is in talks to direct the film from a script by Jennifer Katkin Robinson, whose credits include Netflix's campy dark comedy Do Revenge, Thor Love and Thunder, and the upcoming I Know What You Did Last Summer reboot. Casting is yet to be announced. So yeah, Tangled, obviously, it tells the tale of Rapunzel, a princess voiced by Mandy Moore, who is eventually rescued from her secluded tower by an outlaw named Flynn Rider, played by Zachary Levi. The well-reviewed film opened 14 years ago around Thanksgiving and generated $592 million at the global box office, which would have been a better result had the movie not carried a reported $260 million production budget. Tangled, which boasted the Oscar-nominated song When Will My Life Begin, inspires such spin-offs as the 2012 short film Tangled Ever After and the 2017 TV series Rapunzel's Tangled Adventure. Gracie made his directorial debut with 2017's The Greatest Showman, the P.T. Barnum biographical musical drama starring Hugh Jackman. That film initially struggled at the box office before achieving sleeper hit status with more than $450 million globally. Gracie's latest project is Better Man, a semi-autobiographical story about British musician Robbie Williams, who was portrayed in the film by a chimpanzee. Disney has given numerous animated films the live-action treatment, including The Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Mulan, Dumbo, and The Little Mermaid, to varying degrees of commercial success. Up next, Snow White and Lilo and Stitch will open in 2025, while Moana, starring Dwayne Johnson as the tattooed demigod Maui, is set for 2026. It's never going to end. It is never going to end, and I'd be more cautiously optimistic about this if we just hadn't had the same movies that keep doing this just rehashing the same movie over and over and over again, and not really doing a whole lot new with it. I was a defender of the Disney live-action movies for the longest time, and some of these I actually do like. I did like Cinderella. I think that's probably one of my favorite ones. I liked The Jungle Book. I actually didn't mind The Lion King, the Jon Favreau Lion King. I didn't mind Aladdin. I didn't mind The Little Mermaid, but I'm not going to argue that these movies are great. I'm not going to argue that the same complaints that a lot of other people do. They're just rehashing the same movies that we've seen done to death multiple times. And the shtick gets old so quickly, and it's just like, move along already. Give us something new. Like, instead of just rehashing the past again, why don't you actually do something new for a new generation that get people excited about it? Like, I know your last couple of movies have not been successful. Strange World, Raya and the Last Dragon, Wish. I liked them. I thought most of them were pretty good. I'm the only person that's going to say that now, but I'm telling you, 10 years from now, those movies are going to have a much lasting. They're going to have a big cult following. Like, if Treasure Planet and Atlantis: The Lost Empire can have cult status like they do nowadays, these movies that have come out recently by Disney will in the future. But overall, just the idea of just rehashing another movie that they made within the last 15 years, it's just like, when are they going to announce Frozen's live-action remake? You know they want to do it. It'll probably get announced at the next D23 in 2026. When's Zootopia going to get a live-action movie? Like, hey, Cats didn't work the first time around, but hey, let us at Disney do it. We'll make it right, and by make it right, we'll make it even worse than your nightmares could possibly imagine. I mean, look at the wonderful job you're doing with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and Snow White. I mean, good lord. But yeah, I love Tangled. I thought it was a really good movie. I really liked that film a lot. It's a really good movie. It's definitely kind of the start of that third renaissance for Disney that they had in the 2010s. But I just don't like the idea that they're just going back into the well again. Like, what's going to happen when they run out of all of the animated movies to make fun of? Are they going to start remaking Pixar movies? Or are they going to start? Are they going to start redoing all the other animated movies in CG? Like, I mean, how far does this possibly go? Like, how far are you willing to take this? Because this is just getting ridiculous at this point. But, hey, people are still going to go see it. People are still going to go see it because, hey, name recognition, and Disney will market the hell out of it to get it in the thoughts of people's minds. And yeah, it's going to work out in their favor. But unfortunately, the appeal of Disney just lessens and lessens with every single one of these movies coming out. But I still have some hope for Mufasa the Lion King. There's brief flashes of promise there. They got a really good director, but even he's trying to kill the buzz on it for almost instantaneously. But we'll wait to see what happens down the road. But yeah, I'm not looking forward to seeing what they do with this new Tangled movie. By the way, the director, Michael Gracie, I really don't like The Greatest Showman. The songs in it are great. The songs are fantastic. The movie, really, really bad. Like, it's not a good story. The characters are not that great overall. The songs are incredible. The movie sucks. Like, what was the episode of The Simpsons when, Moe's talking about this, The Way We Were, and he's just like, good song, but yeah, the movie's crap. That's how I feel about The Greatest Showman. That's a movie that's not that great to me. But I am cautiously optimistic about Better Man, that movie with Robbie Williams as the monkey. I think it's a really bizarre concept, but it looks like it could be a ton of fun overall. So I'm cautiously optimistic about that one. But like I said, nothing about this really sounds all that great overall. But who knows? Maybe they'll get it right. Maybe this will be the one that finally breaks the mold. And yeah, maybe I'll become a millionaire in the next couple of years. That's not going to happen. But But I digress. So let's go ahead and move on to our next story. So Warner Brothers and DC are slowly but surely finally coming together under the new James Gunn regime. We're supposed to get a new Superman teaser trailer coming out tomorrow, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But it'll probably be online sooner after that. But I'm really looking forward to seeing what James Gunn's Superman's going to look like. But there was a project that was announced this week that I'm cautiously optimistic about, mostly because of who's working on the film. And this comes from Variety, and the story is that fresh off the success of the HBO series The Penguin, DC Studios has officially greenlit a feature film centered around Clayface, the shape-shifting Batman villain, from a script written by Dr. Sleep filmmaker Mike Flanagan, according to a source with direct knowledge on the project. Plot details are scarce, but filming is expected to begin early next year. Matt Reeves and Lynn Harris will produce through their company Sixth and Idaho Productions. And there's an update here that the film was actually dated for September 11th, 2026, which actually means that this is going to come out not but 3 weeks before the Batman Part 2 comes out on October 2nd. So yeah, this is coming out sooner rather than later, and so... Excuse me for 1 second. Anyway, Flanagan, who first pitched DC Studio on a Clayface project in 2023, tweeted in 2021 that he was really keen to do a standalone Clayface movie as a horror thriller tragedy. But he is also already committed to write and direct a new take of The Exorcist for Universal, through Blumhouse and Morgan Creek, and he's developing a series adaptation of Stephen King's novel Carrey for Amazon MGM Studios. So DC has been on the hunt for a director to take the reins, and an announcement is imminent. And Clayface, if you don't know, is one of the earliest Batman antagonists, has passed through several iterations since he was introduced in 1940 as a washed-up actor who turns to crime wearing the clay-like mask of a character he once played. The character's shape-shifting abilities were first introduced in 1961 and has been portrayed in many live-action and animated Batman adaptations, including by Ron Perlman on Batman the Animated Series in the 1990s. Which I think for a lot of us is where our introduction to this character really came from that episode of Batman the Animated Series with a great animation done by TMS, which is, of course, the company that did the animation for Akira, which has a lot of great shape-shifting animation as well. I mean, that was my first introduction to that character, and that episode still haunts me at the very end. Like, the way that episode comes together and the way the climax comes, like how Batman defeats Clayface at the end, like, it is a tragedy. It's a very intriguing and engaging tragedy of a storyline about Clayface in general. This is a guy that was on top of the world, and then all of a sudden, like, his life changes as soon as he gets this ability to shapeshift and decides to just become a villain overall. And it's a really... what Mike Flanagan can bring to the table with this, because Mike Flanagan, I think, is one of the best horror people out there, one of the best horror filmmakers out there, if not the best overall. I think that there is a lot there to admire about what this guy has done over the last decade or so, because, like, this is the guy that did Oculus, which was a surprisingly really good movie. He's a guy that's made a really good series out of The Haunting of Hill House. I mean, this is also a guy that made Dr. Sleep, which is an underrated little gem of a movie. And to see what he brings to the table with The Exorcist, man, like, after what they did to the last Exorcist movie, like, the possibilities are endless of what this guy can do as a whole, and just, I'm really, really pumped and excited to see where this movie's going to go. And it's going to be very interesting to see if this connects to Batman Part 2 overall. I don't think it's going to do it too much, but considering that it's opening up not but 3 weeks before that movie comes out, I would not be shocked if Clayface makes an appearance in the Batman Part 2 and they connect it somehow. But, yeah, I'm really excited to see this, man. I can't wait to see how this plays out. But, yeah, Clayface movie in the works. Mike Flanagan's working on it. So, I see this as a double win. So, with that said, let's move on to our next story. So, I mentioned Tom and Jerry not too long ago in the show because there is a new Tom and Jerry movie being made over at Warner Brothers Pictures Animation. I've got the story here from Deadline Hollywood. And the story from Deadline Hollywood goes like this. Rashida Jones, Will McCormick, and Michael Govier have been set to write Tom and Jerry, a feature that will be made under Bill Damashek's Warner Brothers Pictures Animation. They will be starting fresh on the new iteration of the misadventures of the cat Tom and mouse Jerry, hatched in 1940 by William Hanna and Joseph Barbera at MGM. Until MGM shuttered its animation division, they made 114 shorts that won 7 Oscars. Later versions came from Gene Deitch and Chuck Jones, and then others. The characters most recently top-lined the 2021 hybrid film Tom and Jerry, while through the years it has been criticized for the sometimes violent ways the cat tries to trap the mouse and pays dearly for it. The venerable franchise has been an influence on many cartoon series, including The Simpsons. Through their prolific Lit Train banner, Jones and McCormick worked as writer, directors, and producers with credits including Celeste and Jessie Forever, Toy Story 4, and The Invite, which Jonathan Dayton and Valerie Faris are directing for Film Nation, with Amy Adams, Paul Rudd, and Tessa Thompson attached. McCormick teamed with Govia to write and direct and co-write the Oscar-winning short film If Anything Happens, I Love You, which was released on Netflix in 2020. And they're just running down the history of what Jones has done recently. Jones co-directed with Al Hicks Quincy, a Grammy-winning documentary about her iconic father, Quincy Jones. She and McCormick most recently teamed on A Swim Lesson, a 20-minute docu that debuted last Telluride. Pick is on swim coach Bill Marsh as he helps youth replace fear with confidence and safety in their lives. So, yeah, a new Tom and Jerry movie in the works, and Warner Brothers Animation. I'll give Warner Brothers credit because I've criticized Warner Brothers a lot. I'm going to continue to criticize Warner Brothers because David Zaslav is such a horrible, horrible human being, but they're keeping that animation division open as much as they can, and I mean, they've got a really good slate of films that I'm really cautiously excited to see. Of course, The Day the Earth Blew Up, which isn't being released by them, but it's being distributed by somebody else. But that's the only way that thing's going to get released, and hopefully the same thing will happen with Coyote versus Acme. But the Cat in the Hat movie, I'm really curious to see what Warner Brothers does with the Dr. Seuss movie. They just also announced Dynamic Duo, which is the Robin movie. Robin's finally getting his own movie. The Flintstones are getting a movie. There's a Looney Tunes movie supposedly coming soon, too. I think there's also a Jetsons movie, too. Like, I'm really excited to see what this new regime under Warner Brothers is going to look like, because there's a lot of things to be cautiously optimistic about. A lot of their movies that they made, I've actually really enjoyed. I don't think they made a really bad movie in general. I think the worst one they've made up to this point was Scoob. And even then, it wasn't bad per se. It just wasn't that great overall. Tom and Jerry, I think, is right up there. The 2021 movie, the live-action stuff's not that great, but when it's Tom and Jerry doing what Tom and Jerry do so well in the animation, that's when the movie really gets fun. I defend that movie mostly because of that. The animation and the stuff that they do with Tom and Jerry. When it's Tom and Jerry doing what they do best, that's what makes the movie so much fun. I mean, that's where the fun factor of that movie really comes from. You could tell that Tim Story, the director of that movie, and the people who worked on that love Tom and Jerry and know exactly what they want to do with the characters themselves. The live-action stuff, however, yeah, that stuff you could just push off to the side. So I'm really curious to see what they do with a new Tom and Jerry movie, especially with Rashida Jones working on it. I was one of those few people that defended Toy Story 4, and I will still defend it to this day. I think it's still a solidly made movie. It's a pointless addition to a great trilogy of films, but still a good movie overall, and I will gladly take it over some of the other bad sequels we've gotten, especially the worst fourth films in the series, like Ice Age and more recently Despicable Me. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what they do with Tom and Jerry with this. I'm really hoping that they allow the animation here they allow the animators they get animators that know their stuff about Tom and Jerry. They know exactly what makes Tom and Jerry so special, and just don't water it down. I think that's the one thing that we want from these movies. Just don't water it down. Plain and simple. But who knows if that will actually happen. But I'm really excited to see when this gets to actually get made. So yeah, with all that said, we're about halfway through these stories here. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Here's a story that I thought was kind of weird that they're bringing this back. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang is getting a new movie. This also comes from Deadline Hollywood, and it says, everyone's favorite Mercedes chassis World War I fighter plane is getting a tune-up as Barbara Broccoli and Michael Wilson's Eon Productions are in development with Amazon MGM Studios on a reimagined film adaptation of the classic Dick Van Dyke family pick, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Sources say the development is in early stages, with Eon and Amazon execs currently setting meetings with potential writers and directors. The film is being developed with the theatrical release in mind. The project builds on Eon and Amazon's MGM partnership on the James Bond franchise, which, coincidentally, the Chitty Chitty Bang Bang storyline is written by Ian Fleming, the man who created James Bond. It was adapted into a screenplay by Roald Dahl, the creator of Willy Wonka, Ken Hughes, and Richard Maibaum. In 1968, the film was released in theaters starring Van Dyke and directed by Ken Hughes and produced by Cubby Broccoli. Ken Adam had handled production, designed the music, and included the Oscar-nominated title song by Robert and Richard Sherman. And that's pretty much all they have to say about this. They don't reveal anything too new about it, but coincidentally, I have never seen Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. It's just a movie that I never really got around to seeing. I remember hearing about the movie. I remember the songs, of course, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, We Love You, that type of stuff. But I've never seen the movie. I didn't even know about the child catcher until I saw the Family Guy episode where, they make fun of that. And it's. I mean, I really don't have much more to say about it. I just think it's kind of interesting that they're continuing that story, that they're doing a new version of it for. I'm wondering if it's going to be like a new generation thing, or maybe it's like going to be one of those generational sequels that they're trying to make because of, Dick Van Dyke's getting up there in his age. I think he's going to turn 100 next year if he hasn't already. Yeah, next year he turns 100 years old, and he's still going strong, man. But actually, he did just turn 100 not too long ago, December 13th, 1925. No. I'm thinking it's 2025. What the hell's wrong with me? No, next year he turns 100. Assuming if he makes it there, which I think he will. I mean, guy's already lived to 99. I'm sure he can make it to 100. But then again, we all thought Betty White was going to make it to 100, and then and then of course she dies before she gets to that point, which I think it's funny. I found it kind of amusing that when Betty White was about to turn 100, I think she was about to turn 100 on early in the year, not even at the early. I think it was January 17th, 1922. So she dies on December 31st, 2021. So she would have been 3 weeks away from turning 100 years old. She dies on the New Year's Eve, and I always remember going into the stores the day after she passed away, and seeing all the Betty White magazines talking about how Betty White made it all the way to 100 years old, and I just thought that talk about awkward, bad timing on their front. But then again, they had those magazines out there for a little bit longer before that, so it's not really their fault, but just unfortunate timing overall. But bottom line, I don't want to see people like Betty White or Dick Van Dyke die. But unfortunately, I feel like they're going to try to rush this out there so they can get Van Dyke to appear as a cameo in this movie. But I mean, we'll wait to see what happens in general. But I don't, like I said, I got to see it I got to see the original film first to see if it's actually any good. But like I said, I haven't seen it before, so I haven't really got much more to say about that one. But yeah, so Chitty Chitty Bang Bang's coming back. So with that said, let us go ahead and move on to our next story. And back to some bad news. You praise Warner Brothers for something, and then you gotta go ahead and trash them for something. And Friday, I think a lot of us had a lot of reasons to hate what Warner Brothers under David Zaslav has been doing. And the next category in the category of douchebaggy things that David Zaslav has done since taking over at Warner Brothers, Sesame Street, sunny days, sweeping the clouds away, on my way to where the air is free. Can you tell me how to get to Sesame Street? Because sooner or later, it's not going to be at HBO anymore. Because, HBO and Max are shutting down that deal they had a couple years ago to produce new episodes of Sesame Street. As I've got the story here from The Hollywood Reporter. And it says, a prime piece of TV real estate is hitting the open market. New episodes of Sesame Street. The long-running children's series is looking for a new home for its original episodes after Warner Bros. Discovery opted not to renew the Sesame output deal with HBO and Max. That being said, Max is staying in business with the show's producer Sesame Workshop, with the streaming service continuing to license episodes for the Sesame Library through 2027. In addition, the current season of Sesame Street, Season 55, will still be available on Max beginning next month. The decision not to continue the deal for new episodes stems from a change in strategy when Max pivoting to focusing more on adult and family programming and placing less emphasis on kids' fare like Sesame Street, because clearly the kids are the only ones who are watching Sesame Street, not the families with the parents that grew up with the show originally. Yeah, great strategy there, Warner Brothers. Just unbelievable. Sesame Street has been on HBO since 2016. Episodes also air on PBS a few months after they run on HBO, allowing for maximum reach and accessibility, as alluded by the Sesame spokesperson, with the company last striking a 5-year deal in 2019 that moved the show to HBO Max and Max. The show can draw substantial attention from a number of major players, not only because of the marquee name, but also because of its library of episodes, which spans more than 5 decades. Max had pulled hundreds of older episodes 2 years ago as part of cost-saving measures of the company. It's not clear whether the library deal with Max would prohibit potential partners from new episodes from acquiring the library episodes. So basically, Sesame Street is up for grabs for pretty much anybody involved. It could go to Netflix, it could go to Apple TV, it could go to Prime Video, it could go to one of these major streaming services. But I think we all know who's going to be the first in line to knock at the door of Warner Brothers. And of course, that is, Disney. Because, of course, Disney owns the Muppet Library. They own most of Jim Henson's properties, except for Sesame Street. That was the one thing in the deal when Disney and the Jim Henson's Muppets came together. That was the one thing in the deal they couldn't get, because I can't remember what it was. Let me see if I can find the details of what happened there. Okay, so it says Sesame Street isn't part of the Disney deal because it's owned by Sesame Workshop, which is a non-profit organization, and Jim Henson, the creator of the show, specifically intended it for not to be owned by Disney. Even when he sold other properties like the Muppets to Disney, he kept Sesame Street separate due to its educational mission. So that's the reason why. And if Disney, this is a golden opportunity for them to go ahead and try to grab those rights, because, I mean, right now, the iron's hot. Warner Brothers is doing whatever it takes to sell whatever it can. Like, if I'm Disney, I would be literally getting a dump trunk full of money over to David Zaslav's house and having Bob Iger come out of the car and just like, is this enough for you? And, I mean, because let's be honest, I mean, Disney's been trying to get the hold of the Sesame Street gang for years now. As part of that deal they have with the Muppets in general. So it really would not be a shocker at all if they're the first ones knocking at the door to get this deal done. But there's also other possibilities too. I mean, Netflix, as I said before, Apple TV, Prime Video, Paramount Plus, maybe. I mean, I think every major streaming service out there is open to possibly grabbing Sesame Street, because it is a hot property. It will always be something that will be timeless to a lot of people, even with kids that grew up with Sesame Street. Now older, a new generation of kids can still get a lot from Sesame Street, even as the world has become much more modernized than what the original show started off as back in the 60s. And speaking of that, there's also some news about the future of Sesame Street and how it will change completely. It says here, executives at Sesame Workshop, cognizant at the end of the contract and seeking to keep the program fresh, are embarking on an effort to reimagine the show for season 56 next year, the first season that will run under whatever new deal the organization is able to secure. Sesame Street will get a new look, dropping the magazine-style format it had for years and leading into longer narrative-led segments, paired with a new animated series, Tales from 123. The changes will be the most significant since 2016, when the show went from 1 hour to 30 minutes. So they're changing the format around and adding a new animated series to it, which they've had Sesame Street spin-offs since then. And, yeah, there's a lot there to really take into this, but I think the end result of this will be that somehow, some way, Disney finds a way to get the rights to Sesame Street. I think they'll find a way to get it in there. I would not be shocked at all, considering how much they've been waiting so long to get the rights, and now they have an opportunity to do so. But possibilities are endless of what they could do here. I mean, if I'm Sesame Workshop, I just go ahead and create my own streaming service for free. I mean, this is a show. Sesame Street is a show that's made with a specific identity in mind to it. It's supposed to educate people and in general, but it's just an idea that, you know, it has these great memorable characters that we've become so attached to, and I think Sesame Street has a name brand on its own that it can do more than enough to work on its own. So I would not be shocked at all if Sesame Street starts working on an idea to create a streaming service of their own. I mean, Chick-fil-A has a streaming service, for God's sakes. If Chick-fil-A has a streaming service, Sesame Street can easily find a streaming service of their own to make of their own. But again, we'll wait to see what happens on that front. A lot of things going into this scenario here, but yeah, just another douchebag move by Warner Brothers. Sorry, kids, but good Lord, this is a long one. But you know, you criticize Warner Brothers, and then you get excited for what they announce next, because here they are again with the next story. And that is the news that after over a year and a half since the first movie came out and became the massive hit that it was, the Barbie sequel is finally getting ready to take shape. As the Hollywood Reporter has the story right here, talking about that the Barbie sequel is in early stages as Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach settle on story idea. As the article goes, as Barbie painted the world pink and covered the box office in a whopping $1.4 billion of green, an urgent question emerged and was lobbied at everyone involved. What about a sequel? It's a query that even somebody as adorably clueless as Ken could have come up with, it, and one that Warner Bros. And Mattel were understandably eager to answer with a resounding yes, please, as it became the indisputable pop culture phenomenon of 2023. But the answer always has rested with the Barbie brain trust of Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach, even if at times the franchise seemed inevitable. The partners in life and creativity, they co-wrote the script and are snagged an Oscar nomination for their collaboration, were clear in pursuing a follow-up, and if and only they could find the story to support it. At least that is what director Gerwig reportedly stated. My North Star is what do I deeply love? What do I really care about? My North Star is what do I deeply love? I literally just said that, and I'm just repeating it. What's the story underneath this story? Gerwig said as she accepted Time's Woman of the Year honors in March 2024. If I find the undertow, then we get it. If I don't find an undertow, there's no more. The Hollywood Reporter has learned from a well-placed source that Gerwig and Bombach have been swept up in an undertow and hatched an idea for the sequel, having already brought it to Warner Brothers. While it's said to be in the early stages, it is understood that finding the story has opened the door for deal talks, which again, if early, is early. Another source with direct knowledge confirms. So yeah, obviously they're working on a Barbie sequel, and yeah, you got to find the right story to continue the film along. Like you don't want to piss off the people by just doing another generic comedy sequel, and I'm hoping that's not the case with this movie in general, because I really liked the first Barbie movie a lot. I thought it was a ton of fun, but I'm really excited to see where they go with this. I mean, expanding the universe in general. I thought the first movie ended on a note where it could just be its own movie in general, but. Overall, I'm cautiously optimistic about where the direction of this goes from here. I'm really excited to see where it goes. Hopefully, they don't half-ass it, but Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach very rarely miss as filmmakers, so I'm really excited to see what they do with this. Not much more to say about that one, but that was one of the big stories that came out this week. And so we move along now to our next story. And that is that Disney Plus is bringing back a classic 2000s comedy show from Fox. Malcolm in the Middle is coming back on Disney Plus in time for its 25th anniversary, with most of the same cast returning. Frankie Muniz is coming back as Malcolm, Bryan Cranston and Jane Kasmir coming back as his parents. The story here from Variety goes like this. Life isn't that unfair, it turns out, as Malcolm in the Middle, a revival has been ordered at Disney Plus. The new iteration of the series hails from original series creator Linwood Boomer, with original stars Frankie Muniz, Bryan Cranston, and Jane Kasmir set to reprise their roles. Disney-branded television has ordered 4 new episodes of the beloved sitcom. A premiere date has yet to be set. Per the official logline, Malcolm, Frankie Muniz, and his daughter are drawn into the family's chaos when Hal, Bryan Cranston, and Lois, Jane Kasmir, demand his presence for their 40th wedding anniversary party. So if you don't remember Malcolm in the Middle, because there might be some of you out there who may have been just a little bit too young to remember when the show came out in 2000, but I think most of my audience is well over the age where they remember the show in general. But it was a really great show, man. It was really one of the best Fox live-action comedies they've ever had. It was a really clever show, really funny stuff. The cast was fantastic. You liked these characters all around. It really was the perfect definition of a great Fox family comedy show that wasn't afraid to take chances. It was very silly. It was very over the top. It was a brilliant, funny, dysfunctional family comedy series that sadly has kind of lost its muster in the years since it ended. I mean, it ran for 7 seasons. It was a massive hit when it came on TV, but there's very rarely any DVDs of it. Only the first season of it exists on DVD because I think of copyright issues with the music. And for the longest time, it was off TV for a number of different years. It came back every once in a while, like when FXX was starting up. It was on there, and then just recently it was on Disney Plus. We could watch the whole series on there, but definitely rewatch it again because the show has not lost a beat 25 years later. And I'm really excited to see what happens when these guys get back together. Even if it is for 4 episodes in general, this should still be a ton of fun no matter how you look at it, man. I feel like this is going to be such a great return to form for the show. I'm really excited to see where the direction is. I'm really excited to see if they get all the other cast members back here because it just says Muniz, Cranston, and Kasmir. I'm sure they're working on deals now to see, because I want to see what Dewey's been up to. I want to see what, Malcolm's brothers, Reese and Francis. I want to see what they've been up to since the last time Malcolm in the Middle ended. I mean, there's just so much there to get excited about with this, and I'm really excited to see Disney Plus take this to another level. I mean, if we can get the same kind of, if we can get what we were supposed to get with the Lizzie McGuire adult reboot that they were supposed to do, but then they shut it down, if they can bring that into something like Malcolm in the Middle, be a little bit more risque with it because they don't have to worry about the specifics of censorship in general, a whole lot, but. Bottom line, I'm really excited to see where this goes. I'm really excited to see the direction that they take this in. This is probably one of the more exciting reboots I've heard in a long time because I love the original show. I think the possibilities are just endless of what you can do with a new version of Malcolm in the Middle, especially with everybody all grown up. Just really excited to see where they go with the direction of this. So with that said, let's move on to our next story. So, of course, Jim Carrey is in the news because this coming Friday he's going to be back as Dr. Robotnik in Sonic the Hedgehog 3. And This is, of course, the time of the year where he has a number of different Christmas classics everyone watches every year. Christmas Carol, but most notably his role as the Grinch in Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And I bring this up because The Hollywood Reporter had a story about Jim Carrey reprising his role as the Grinch. And he said he would do it under one condition. I've got the story here. And it says, Jim Carrey might be looking to steal Christmas one more time. The actor who played the Grinch in the 2000 film shared in a recent interview with comicbook.com that he would be opening to return for a sequel, but under one condition. And Carrey says, oh gosh, if we could figure out the Grinch. The thing about it is, on that day, I do that with a ton of makeup and can hardly breathe. It was an extremely excruciating process, which, considering that I just wore my Grinch costume for the recent time about the Christmas episode I did over on the main YouTube channel, yeah, I mean, I don't have the same type of makeup and stuff that Jim Carrey did in that movie, but even wearing that costume, like, something I found out recently about that costume, by the way, is I think the one that I have is, like, I know that it gets really sweaty in there pretty quickly, so, yeah, it's really hard to, like, keep your composure at times. I didn't, like, pass out or anything when I wore it during the Comic-Con this past week, but, yeah, I could totally agree with what Jim Carrey is saying on that front. But I will also say this. When I went to Walmart just recently, I went there to go and I went there into the Christmas section. They still have the costumes there. What I didn't notice is that I think on the newer costumes, there's, like, a little hole underneath the neck that they just added in there. I think because there wasn't one there the first time around. It just felt, as I think, they were getting some problems with people like not being able to breathe or get some air in there or something like that. But I just found it weird that the newer costumes had that little opening there, but the older costume did not. So it's just a random tangent there. But I thought that was kind of interesting. I just wanted to bring that up because when they were talking about this. But anyway, back to the story. He continued that the children were all in my mind all the time. It's for the kids, it's for the kids, it's for the kids. And now with motion capture and things like that, I can be free to do other things. Anything is possible in the world. The Bruce Almighty actors... Why are we bringing up Bruce Almighty? Jim Carrey's done so much more than Bruce Almighty since then. The Bruce Almighty actor starred in the Ron Howard-directed film. However, it wasn't without its difficulties, as he had to wear a full-body prosthetic green suit and makeup for the character, sitting in makeup for hours every day ahead of filming. So if he could play the Grinch via motion capture, the actor is all in. Okay, well, I think you can kind of figure out the problem here with this, and it's just like... Yeah, I'm not really keen on having a motion capture Grinch in general here. I mean, just why do we even need to make a sequel to the Grinch? Honestly, like really, like the first movie ended on a good note. The first movie ended on a very well made note. Like it's a movie that's supposed to be one film. I mean, unless you're gonna do like Halloween is Grinch Night or the Grinch sequels, or do that Grinch is the Cat in the Hat crossover. Just don't cast Mike Myers in there, for God's sakes, as the Cat in the Hat. Good Lord. Like, unless you're going to do it like that, you might as well not do it at that point. I mean, it just feels like something that just feels really unnecessary to do at this point. It just feels like you're only doing it solely because the first movie had such a lasting impact in general, and just like, we get, money. That's the only real reason you'd be doing it, but, and also, it's like, if you're going to do it for something like the 25th anniversary of the Grinch, it's going to be like a commercial that you see for, like, Comcast and Xfinity, because it is a Universal property. Like, I mean, I'd be okay if it was like a commercial or something like that for a one-day thing, like if something that he does for one day in general to come back in that, but yeah, it just feels like something that really doesn't feel like that's necessary. Like, I like The Grinch on its own. I don't feel like we need a sequel. We need a sequel to the original How the Grinch Stole Christmas, honestly. Just in general. I mean, the book of the recent sequel that we got last year in book form was not that great to begin with. With all that said, let's go ahead and get to the last story that we have here. So finally, we're on to the last story that we have here, and it's quite a doozy. This is a story that takes place within the National Football League, and on Thursday night, the Los Angeles Rams played the San Francisco 49ers in a very ugly Thursday night football game, and it was really, really ugly. Like, E-U-G-L-Y, ugly. Not talking about, like, Ugly Betty, where she's, like, she looks ugly on the outside, but inside she's got this beauty towards her. No, this whole thing got ugly real fast, and it was a really sloppy game. The Rams pulled off the win in that one. They won it by the score of 12-6. But that was not the big story that was coming out of that game. The big story that came out of that game was the 49ers and their linebacker De'Vondre Campbell. And if you don't know exactly what I'm talking about, let's take a trip back to Thursday night. And let's go to the moment when De'Vondre Campbell decided to literally give up on his football team that night.
Back, everybody. So De'Vondre Campbell didn't play a snap tonight, but this is him walking off the field, helmet in hand, in the fourth quarter. Kyle Shanahan was asked about it after the game. Here's what he had to say. Take a listen.
Happened with De'Vondre Campbell. He didn't play, and he went into the locker room at some point.
Yeah, he said he didn't want to play today.
Play today?
Yeah.
The coaching staff.
Back, everybody. So De'Vondre Campbell.
Okay, so it was only a short clip. That was from a Thursday Night Football with Carissa Thompson. They're talking about that, but yeah, De'Vondre Campbell decided, I just don't feel like going in there today. I'm just gonna go ahead and walk on, just get the hell on out of here. And it's just like you're doing this at the beginning of the second quarter of the second half. Like, what are you doing? Like, what exactly are you doing? And everyone else, and this is a very, very interesting scenario to what happened here. And I'm trying to see if I can find a good story that kind of runs down exactly what the hell happened here. Give me 1 second. All right, here's NBC News, who has the story here. And it says here, San Francisco 49ers linebacker De'Vondre Campbell left the sidelines during his team's season-crushing loss to the Los Angeles Rams on Thursday night, in an apparent refusal to play that earned scorn from teammates and jeopardized his spot on the team. The veteran had been bumped from the starting lineup with the return of previously injured Dre Greenlaw, who, if you remember, was the one who got injured who tore his ACL. I think it was either his ACL or his MCL during the Super Bowl. Like, it wasn't even on a play. He was literally coming out onto the field, and his MCL tore on him just out of nowhere. But when Greenlaw needed to come out of the game in the third quarter, Campbell declined to play, according to 49ers coach Kyle Shanahan. He said he didn't want to play today, Shanahan told reporters after the game. Shanahan said on Friday on a conference call with reporters that Campbell will no longer be a member of the team. On Thursday, tight end George Kittle and cornerback Charvarius Ward, the two of the team's most respected players, vented their frustrations with Campbell's inaction. It's hard to win football games when someone doesn't want to play football, Kittle said. I think that's ignorant. I think it's just dumb. It's just stupid, and it's very immature. I just don't see how you could do something like that to your team. Ward said Campbell should have never put on a uniform if he didn't want to play Thursday. That's some suck-ass shit. It definitely hurt the team, said Ward, playing in his third game since, and this is critical. This is critical. What I'm about to talk about here, the death of his 1-year-old daughter. He's probably going to get cut soon. He literally said he's probably going to get cut soon. Charvarius Ward said this. His daughter died. When did he? On the day before Halloween. And she was 1 year old. She was I'm trying to figure out what she was born prematurely with Down syndrome and had experienced heart issues since birth. I'm reading it off of the NBC page here, but he was out of football for a little bit, but then eventually came back not too long ago to play for the stretch run here for the 49ers. Like, the fact that Charvarius Ward had the balls to come out there and say what he said about his teammate like that, like Charvarius Ward has a lot there to really be, like, there's nothing bad you can say about him in general, but De'Vondre Campbell, like, I'm sorry, man, like, you just don't want to play. Like, that's what they brought you in for. Yeah, I'm sorry that, you were only brought there to be a placeholder for Dre Greenlaw until he got better, but you had to have known that once he comes back in, your playing time is going to get reduced down. It's not like De'Vondre Campbell is this young, hip defensive player. He's played in football for almost 10 years, for 8 years now. This will be his 9th year, because he was drafted by the Atlanta Falcons in 2016, and he's been with the Cardinals, he's been with the Packers, came to San Francisco this year, but he's not been that good to begin with. And so the whole thing is that he quits on his team in a critical game when they need him the most. He did what Antonio Brown did to the Steelers years ago. Like, when the Steelers were still hoping to get into the playoffs, they needed Antonio Brown for the last game against Cincinnati, and AB just said, "Yeah, I'm not going to do that." And that was the last play he'd ever played for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And of course, a couple years later, when he was playing for Tampa Bay, and it was a game against the Jets, he walked off the field, not even walked off the field, went crazy on the field, removing his suit, removing his jersey, his clothes, nearly everything and just said, fuck this shit, I'm out. And of course Tampa Bay got rid of him as soon as after that for the stupidest of reasons. Antonio Brown, like, we can laugh at Antonio Brown for how he completely destroyed his own life because of this. But De'Vondre Campbell, man, like, this is something where it's just like, your team needed you, man. Your team needed you to come in there. You had injuries. There was injuries all across the board, and you had to come into the game, but you decided not to do it, and then you just leave the locker room without telling anybody what you're doing. The fact that he is still yet to come out and explain his situation here, he knows that there's no defending what he did. He knows that he's got nothing to say. He's got nothing else to say, man. Like, he's really that frustrated with it. And I mean, I thought they were cutting him, but they're not really doing that right now. They're basically saying that, we're getting close to the end of the season and we'll probably get rid of him then. But we know that as soon as we cut him, some other team's going to go ahead and bring him in here. And so, yeah, I'd be not shocked at all if he was inactive for the rest of the season for the 49ers, and they just suspend him until the end of the year. And then that's when they get rid of him, because there ain't nobody out there that's going to want to play with this dude, especially after that. Like, there's no excuse for going out there and just completely abandoning your team when you're doing your job. Like, imagine me going to work, and then I get instructions from my boss, and then I just feel like, no, I really don't feel like doing it. You think they're going to be okay with that? No, they're going to fire me almost immediately. Because they're going to fire me right off the spot. Like, I wouldn't, it's like, even as good of a job as I do, and if there's that one day when I'm just like, I really don't feel like it. You think they're going to be just like, well, okay, here, let me go get you a chair and a footrest, and get you like a Chardonnay or whatever, or wine or something, or some kind of drink or something. You can just sit back, relax. Like, no, they're not going to do that per se. It's like, you do that at your job, you get fired almost instantaneously. And the fact that De'Vondre Campbell looked at this and had no problems with doing this whatsoever, like, that's just despicable, man. That's just ridiculous. It's stupid, and it's just one of the many problems that this team really just. There's just no defending it, man. It's just been the whole thing for the 49ers all season long. It has been a disaster season. They've had so many injuries. They've been without Christian McCaffrey all season long. I mean, this is the same thing that happened to them the last time they went to the Super Bowl the year before. They had all these injuries. They thought that if they could still win with whoever they had available to them, and they tried their best, but everybody they had kept getting injured. Their backup running backs kept getting injured. There was not really a whole lot there. And it's like I said before, like, Brock Purdy isn't that good when you realize that without all the weapons around him, Brock Purdy is not that great in general. Well, like, I hate it. The reason why I don't like Brock Purdy is because everyone overhypes this guy to be the next big thing, because he's Mr. Irrelevant and he was the most successful QB to come out of that 2020 NFL draft class. Okay. He's not Tom Brady. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He doesn't have that same kind of quarterback ability that those two guys have, and that has caused them to have the success that they've had, because they have more than enough weapons around them to get wins, and they can win games on their own if they need to. Brock Purdy can't do that. Like, as much as you want to try to keep, as much as you want to try to keep that argument going, like, we're seeing it right now. Like, he can only do so much, and that's why I'm not the biggest Brock Purdy person ever. I think he's very overrated. He's definitely a QB that's not that great compared to what everyone else thinks of him. And this season is just showing you why that is. Like, I think this is just kind of what I kind of expected from the 49ers after what happened last year. There was going to be a lot of regression, and there is a lot of regression. But yeah, right now the whole thing is on De'Vondre Campbell. If I'm the 49ers, I'm suspending him for the rest of the season. And then as soon as that gun goes off at the end of the regular season, I'm cutting him immediately. Like, I feel like that's exactly what they're going to do at that point. But, so yeah, that's the last story we have here. Whew. Busy news week indeed. So, let's go ahead and get to some recommendations. Let's get the heck on out of here, because, man, I am tired. And as recommendations go this week, we actually do have a couple of big titles coming out this week. Some critically underrated little gems that are coming out this week on Blu-ray. The first big one is, of course, Transformers 1, which did not get the best treatment at the box office and was just largely passed over for reasons that are beyond me, because the movie's friggin' awesome, man. It's a great movie, directed by the same guy that did Toy Story 4, with Chris Hemsworth as Optimus Prime, Brian Tyree Henry as Megatron. Their storyline in that movie is great. Brian Tyree Henry really is the star of that movie. I mean, he just gives 110%, and you just see the progression of this character that will eventually become Megatron, and it's just so perfectly well done. You got Scarlett Johansson, Keegan-Michael Key in the cast as well. They're very good. Really good movie. A really good, underrated film that definitely deserves a lot more attention, and it comes out this week on Blu-ray. It's definitely worth the watch. And another one that's definitely worth the watch coming out this week, maybe even more so than Transformers 1, Piece by Piece, the Lego Pharrell Williams documentary, where Pharrell Williams tells the story about, how he came to be through the power of Legos. And it really is a towering achievement of a movie. It's an impressively put together movie that's not afraid to take chances when it is, and it just works so well on so many levels. It's a great movie. Coming out on Blu-ray this week for the first time. Definitely looking forward to picking that up and having those two movies in my collection. Some other movies come out this week as well. The Holdovers gets a 4K release this week through Shout Factory. And then the Digimon movies are coming out on Blu-ray with the new dubbing on that. Demolition Man's getting a 4K release through Arrow Video. Seinfeld's getting a Blu-ray release finally. They're putting out the complete series on both Blu-ray and 4K. Oh, and also a Joker 2 comes out if you're interested in that type of movie. But, but the stuff I'm recommending this week, though, Piece by Piece, Transformers 1, The Holdovers, Digimon, Demolition Man, and Seinfeld. Those are my recommendations in terms of new releases this week. So, yeah, with all of that said, thank you guys so much for watching and listening. And there was a lot we had to cover this week. It was a big week for news stories. And with all that said, thank you guys so much for watching and listening. If you like what you saw and you want to see more videos like this, please go ahead and check out our playlist on the next page. Check out I keep thinking this is talking about the movies, but no. Check out our playlist, check out our previous episode, and go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe button, and the notification button so you get updates on when new videos come out. We post here every Sunday night with new episodes, as well as other videos out here, including the clipless versions of Time About the Movies, trailer reactions, the NFL Network, other things. You name it, we've got it all for you here. So with all of that said, thank you guys so much for watching and listening. I'll see you guys next week, and until then, we are out.